Jimmy Tebeau from The Schwag. That's right. I got my own radio show. Check it out, everybody. Today, the plan is we're going to play some cool music in the studio. And we got a bunch of friends in here, and we're going to play some music, too. And it's going to be a good time. You know who we got in the studio? I got to introduce my friend here. He came all the way up from Little Rock. Piano player. And now, I got to brag a little bit. This guy was working at Ron Wood's club in Miami. And Ron Wood being the guitarist of the Rolling Stones, this guy here was in the house band and got to jam with a lot of great people, and got to meet and play with Bobby Keys, the Rolling Stones saxophone player, and then actually was in his band and toured around, and he's in the house with us today. And his name is Robert Coleman, also known as Frisbee. What's up, Frisbee?
How's it going there, Jimmy? Yeah, there was Woody's on the Beach was on South Beach, actually, so it was Miami Beach.
Oh, wow.
And I had met Bobby Keys previously in Austin, Texas. We had an original band, and it was our manager was the president of the Bandito motorcycle gang, and we had met there, and so we had we would open up for Robin Trower and stuff like that. And then Woody's on the Beach opened up in South Beach, and Bobby Keys moved down there. And initially, Ian McLagan from Faces was the keyboard player, the house keyboard player.
Wow.
But then Mac decided he wanted to move out to L.A., and when he moved out there, they were left without a keyboard player. And they held auditions in South Beach, and Bobby was the director, the music director, and in charge of the live music. And he didn't care for it. He told the management, he goes, "I know this kid. He's only 25 years old. He plays a bunch of Frisbee and plays piano. That's all he does. He smoked these guys." And so Bobby called me up and brought me down, and I didn't really have to audition or anything because he just put me right to work. So.
Oh man, that's great! It must have been great playing with. Well, did you ever play with Ron Wood? He owned.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Wow,
Woody would come down, and he was a real character. He was always a good time. You know, when he was around. He's a real cut up, real character. The first gig that we did, that first one I did with him, was the second New Year's Eve that they did, and so I was actually staying with Bobby Keys, and the phone rang, and the first phone call was Dan Aykroyd, and he was looking for his brother Peter Aykroyd, who's a musician, and he's done a lot of stuff with public television, but he was actually the featured artist for New Year's Eve, and so I played with Dan Aykroyd's brother with Bobby Keys and a slew of characters on. That was my first gig there, and it was just kind of full speed after that.
Now, Bobby Keys put together a touring band. You did some?
Yes. We became after the club closed. I started together a small little project, Woody's Orphans, because we were left basically without a home, and that name just kind of Pat thought of it. He was our guitar player and singer, and we had a little trio, and then everybody kept wanting to join the band, and sure enough, there was enough work for it. And then, I talked to Bobby. He said, "Hey, we're kind of keeping this thing going," and he was all into it. So we went up and did stuff like went through Nashville and played stuff up there, and we did a lot of fun things. It was great. But I played on and off with Bobby for 29 years before he passed on about a year ago.
Wow. I actually got to see Bobby Keys maybe a year or two before he died. I did that Rock Legends cruise with Jerry Garcia Band, and I got to see Bobby Keys set. So and what was cool is he was telling a lot of stories between songs about different things, and apparently, and we'll get to this a little bit later in the show, but apparently one of the big famous stories is that him and Keith Richards on tour in the 70s with the Rolling Stones threw a TV out the 15th story window of a hotel or something, and you've heard story. Right?
It's absolutely true. I mean, a lot of people were like, "Did that really happen?" And I have no idea what year it was, but Bobby and Keith, at first Bobby was more close with Mick Jagger. He was best man at Mick Jagger's wedding and all that kind of stuff, but then eventually he went to Keith's camp. They found out they were born the same day, the same year, and they found out they were born just minutes apart in two different countries, and that's a term called astral twins. So once they found out they were astral twins, they kind of became inseparable, and they best friends until Bobby died. But they were on tour one year, and they were in a hotel room, and they were looking at TV, and they were just bored to tears. They're like, this is the most boring thing ever, was sitting there watching TV. And then they got the idea, I know what would make it exciting. Let's throw it off the balcony. That would be more fun than watching it. That'd be a fun way to watch the TV, was watching it fly and splinter into a million pieces, and that's what they did.
Now, this was the old school TV with the big giant tube in it, not like the little flat screen thing.
That's why
it probably shattered.
Oh, and it was heavy. That's why I took two of them. It wasn't like the TVs today where you can carry one under each arm. It took two people to lift it and separate it from whatever it was connected to, and Bobby always said that he wished he knew what company made that TV, because he was asked so many times about throwing it off the balcony that if he knew the name brand, he could have gave him a plug and been set with TVs for life.
Oh, that's pretty fun. Well, we got a lot more of those stories. Why don't we play a little bit of music?
Sure.
What do you got there? Are we on? Let's do that Rider Jam.
All right.
We got instruments here. We're just gonna have some fun. Are we on? Check 2 1 2. Are those off? You gotta turn those off. Just having fun. Just having some fun in the studio with some friends. It's all good. So, people are probably wondering, how did this guy from originally from Texas, who ended up in Miami for a while, is now here in Rolla on this night, but you're currently living in Little Rock, right?
Yeah, it's just chasing the money. Wherever the gigs take me, that's where I ended up. For a long time, I just, went with the wind.
Well, that's where I kind of ran into you, is Little Rock, I believe, playing gigs down in Little Rock, and you're a local musician, and really just, I think you cold called me one day and said, "Hey, can I jam?" I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." Who have you played with? And I'm like, "Oh, wait a minute, this guy's probably pretty good."
When I called you, I had put together my own Grateful Dead tribute band, and I didn't really know who you were, but then I started hearing about you because of my Grateful Dead project that I had going, and I called you up. I was all excited because I had just worked up my own version of Cumberland Blues, and you were driving, and I was like, "Oh man, you got to hear it!" And I started playing it for you over the phone, and you loved it, and that began the whole journey was that phone call.
So what brought you to Little Rock, though, was the job offer of with what is it, the Ernie
Biggs Dueling Piano Bar. I became after all the stuff with Woody's Orphans and all that. I eventually fell in around 1997. I started learning how to do dueling pianos, and then in 2003, Ernie Biggs opened up their first club, and I moved there for that. And back then, they didn't have a director or anything like that.
That was in Little Rock?
In Little Rock, yes. And then that company grew and grew. And then probably about six years ago or something like that, I became their national director. And
now there's, 4 or 5 locations in the Midwest?
We had 5 at one point, and now we're down to 2. We closed 3 of the locations. A lot of it had to do with just really greedy landlords because they just kept raising the rent to where you couldn't make any profit. They would.
It's tough.
And it wasn't just like a little bit of raises. Like from one year to the next, more than and 2 of the locations more than doubled.
Oh, well, they thought you guys were making a lot of money. So there's one in Springfield now, and one in Little Rock.
There's one in Springfield. I'm playing in Springfield tonight. Tonight, Wednesday through Saturday.
Right, which is part of the reason you're here in Rolla tonight, because it wasn't too far.
That is absolutely right. I'm on my way to the gig. I'm with my son, Franko Coleman.
And he brought his sax. He'll be jamming with us here in a little bit, right?
Yes, yeah. And then he'll be actually busking. He's a street performer, so he will be actually working the whole week with me up in Springfield because he's on spring break, and he's a high school student.
Now, this dueling piano gig, that's a pretty popular thing. You're doing 3 or 4 or 5 nights a week.
I do 5 nights a week, always. A minimum of 5. I kind of, with music in general, I try to do 5 to 8 gigs a week.
Oh my Lord! What's one of the popular piano bar songs that you play? The dueling piano?
Well, there's a lot of popular ones. Sweet Caroline, Brown Eyed Girl. And those are the classics, and nowadays you get a lot of requests at like 3 a.m. I think it's requested every night by Matchbox 20, but we have to play a lot, so we do everything from country and classic rock, and then we'll throw in a rap tune here, and then in Little Rock we even. Whenever we switch piano players, we have 3 piano players, and it goes all night. And then when we switch players, we all pick up different instruments, and we'll do Rage Against the Machine, and we'll do War Pigs by Black Sabbath, and that always catches them off guard because people that have never been to a piano bar, they sure don't expect you to start playing Rage Against the Machine.
Can you play us one of those songs?
I'll tell you what. We were talking about ones like there's a couple that people really like to hear me play, and songs that I like. I love doing Joe Jackson. He's real great. But in all reality, like one of the favorites that people like hearing me do is "C'est La Vie" by Chuck Berry. And even though it's an older song, it gained a lot of popularity when Pulp Fiction came out because it was the scene in Jackrabbit Slims when John Travolta and Uma Thurman entered the dance contest, and so whenever I play this one, a lot of, especially couples that have seen the movie, they'll get up and they'll each pretend like they're that character from the movie, and they'll mimic the dance. And what's really fun is when you get like 4 or 5 couples and they're trying to outdance each other on "C'est La Vie." So this is kind of a fun one. So I'll play my version of "C'est La Vie" by Chuck Berry, and this one I really like because Johnny Johnson is just a wonderful piano player who never really got the credit. I know you being from St. Louis, you're well aware who Johnny Johnson is.
I've done gigs with Johnny Johnson.
You did? Oh my God, one of my all-time favorite players that just never got the credit he deserved. And he was so much a part of the writing of Chuck Berry's material, and one way that's easy to figure that out is because songs are like in key of C and F. Those aren't really guitar keys, so you could tell that those things came from Johnny Johnson. So this one's in C. This is "C'est La Vie." numbers in. And the young boys show up and down Moraine Chapel Band. C'est la vie, said the old folk, go to show you never can tell. And everyone in 1953, they drove it down to New Orleans and celebrate their anniversary. It was there that Pierre was ready to a mademoiselle. C'est la vie, said the old folk, go to show you never can tell. When they sure didn't let it blast. 700 little records, all rockin' rhythm and jazz. And when the sun went down, that rabbit never would the music fell. C'est la vie, said the old folk, go to show you never can tell. C'est la vie, said the old folk, go to show you never can tell.
Oh yeah, that was smooth. I like that.
Sometimes in dueling pianos we shorten songs, like, you know, as long as we get the story in, you know, like songs like El Paso, you know.
Oh yeah, that's a long one.
Down in the West Texas town of El Paso, I fell in love with a Mexican girl. We drank tequila at Rosie's Cantina. She pissed me off, so I shot her. She's dead.
Oh, that is way shorting that song. Yeah, that's,
the whole story's in there, though.
Yeah, it's one of those songs I learned while I was in prison. You know, because I had a lot of time and to memorize that whole El Paso.
You
thing.
memorized all those lyrics?
Yeah, not the version you just did. But you know, you mentioned Johnny Johnson. You're kind of setting me up to tell my Johnny Johnson story. And how I met Johnny Johnson, being from St. Louis, is I've been married twice, but when I was married to my first wife, she had jury duty downtown St. Louis, and I dropped her off, and I had to pick her up later that day, and she called me and said, "Hey, come pick me up this time, but you'll never guess who I'm on jury duty with, Johnny Johnson." And she was kind of an outgoing girl. I'm like, "Well, did you say anything to him?" She's like, "Shoot, yeah, he's going to meet you when you pull up," you know. So I pulled up, met Johnny Johnson on the sidewalk downtown St. Louis, and I was like, "Johnny, would you do a gig with us sometimes?" He's like, "Yeah, sure, here's my number." And I called him, and he ended up doing 2 or 3 shows with us. I think it was 3. We did 2 at a small club, 1 at a big club there in St. Louis. It was well attended, and we learned a lot about the boogie woogie blues thing that he did. And that's when I learned that, you know, Johnny B. Good isn't in the key of A, it's in the key of B flat, and which makes sense. But then one of the songs he showed us was the song Tanqueray, and let's go ahead and play Tanqueray. But I got to tell you the story of Tanqueray. It kind of ties into this Rolling Stones theme as well. When Chuck Berry had a birthday party and they recorded this movie Hail Hail Rock and Roll, Keith Richards came over for it, and it was in St. Louis, and they were rehearsing at Chuck Berry's farm for this big show at the Fox Theater. And the story goes that Johnny Johnson and Keith Richards were hanging out, and they were drinking Tanqueray, which is a type of liqueur, and they came up with this song, and Johnny showed it to me, so I'd like to play it. But your son's got a saxophone here, right?
Yes, he's going to join us. This is Franko Coleman. He's an award-winning sax player. He's only 16, but he's well on his way. He's been doing gigs since he was 11, so... you were talking about Hail Hail Rock and Roll before we start.
Okay.
I met Bobby Keys when he was filming that. I had auditioned for a band for the original project in Austin, Texas, while he was filming that.
Wow.
So they held the auditions during that period. So then when he finished, he came back to Austin, Texas, and by then I was already in the band, and it was during that time period. So
wow. Well, here it is, Tanqueray. Something about getting drunk. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Listen to me, baby. I hear what I gotta say. What you got, Frank? Yeah. Listen to me, baby. I hear what I gotta say. have a drink at Tanqueray. Come on, baby, won't you do like I say? Come on, baby, won't you do like I say? We're going down to the corner to have a drink at Tanqueray. Here we go. A drink at Tanqueray. 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 But I knew I'd see the day. It's been a long time coming, but I knew I'd see the day. And you and I would sit down to have a drink at Tanqueray. Well, a drink at Tanqueray. Drink at Tanqueray. Drink a Tanqueray. Drink a Tanqueray. A drink a Tanqueray. One more time. A drink a Tanqueray. A drink a Tanqueray. Or maybe some tea. A drink a Tanqueray. Oh yeah, Jack Daniels. A drink a Tanqueray. You know, I could just see those guys sitting around at Chuck Berry's farm working on songs for that show, and then like let's write a blues song. You know, it's got that St. Louis blues groove, that boogie woogie thing that primarily, you know, Johnny Johnson was the pioneer of.
Bobby was huge fan of Johnny, and they're buds too. I'm sure if Keith and Johnny were together, I'm sure Bobby was probably the third one there. You know, because.
Now, doing these gigs with Bobby Keys all those years, there's got to be some crazy stories in there. And this guy's played with a lot of different people. It was more than just the Rolling Stones, right?
Yeah, he's played with all of the Beatles, but not the Beatles. You know, he's played on each of their individual solo albums, and he was really good friends with John Lennon. At one point, they were next door neighbors, and Yoko used to not let them hang out together because they used to kind of get in a lot of trouble together. They like to run in the same circles, and you know, they sometimes did more than they should, and so they would get separated, and Yoko was no hanging out with Bobby, and then so during one of these separations, all of a sudden the phone rang, and it was John Lennon had called him, and he said, Bobby, look, Yoko wants you to be on her album. It's just our chance. We get to hang out again. Come on over. So they were next door neighbors. So he went over, and Yoko. So the session came, and she wanted him to play the baritone saxophone. And Bobby said it was the strangest session he ever did. You know, the whole session he gets all set up at the microphone there in the recording studio, and Yoko tells him, she said, just imagine that you're the biggest bullfrog in a lily pond, and the winter is coming on, and a cool winter breeze hits the back of your neck. What sound would you make? So Bobby pictured himself. He just like went in there and he pictured like that. And so then he figured the lowest note on the baritone, and he just started real quiet. And just let it vibrate. He just took one breath, played one note. It was the lowest note on the baritone that vibrated it. And then afterwards, Yoko goes, "Oh, that's great! You're my bullfrog. You're my bullfrog." So then they were all three close again for quite some time after that, because he went and played one note on Yoko's album. So I always thought that one was funny.
Oh, that's good stuff. Excellent stuff. Did we have a recording of him playing anything?
Well, I know we have Brown Sugar. I would like to set this one up, because this is a story that never really was made public. You know, I mean, not many people know about it.
But Brown Sugar being the big Rolling Stones hit.
Brown
Sugar, right?
Yeah,
is that what we're
Brown
talking
Sugar
about?
was one of the biggest hits ever for the Stones. I think Satisfaction was probably the biggest, but Brown Sugar is absolutely. The one the big grand finale tune that they do, and that was a Mick Jagger. Mick Jagger wrote it, and Keith was always very proud that he wrote such an amazing song and of Brown Sugar. He was very proud of Mick. Now, initially, this song there was supposed to be a guitar solo in the middle, and those changes they're kind of strange because it goes to an E flat, but. Keith was in the studio, and they were just take after take. They were struggling, and he was just trying to find the right fit, the right notes to play, because Keith is very particular. It's got to be, each note's got to be right. Well, while they were recording it, Bobby was in the engineering booth, and he was sitting next to the engineer. Well, he just picked up his horn, and when Keith was struggling, he started playing live. Well, the engineer just muted the recording, just the speaker, what they were listening to, and Keith is still actually recording. And he just muted what Keith was playing, and I didn't even listen to Bobby. And then when that section got over where the solo is, he went on the talkback mic and said, "Hey, Keith, it's not going to be guitar solo anymore. It's going to be a sax solo." So they went and they set Bobby Keys up in the studio, and they set the microphone, and he got all set, and they ran the take, and he did it in one take. And that is one of the most famous sax solos of all time in any song ever.
So he didn't write it ahead of time. He just improvised it.
Well, he kind of got an idea of what he wanted to play while Keith was doing it. And he started playing around, and the engineer would go, "Whoa, what's that? It's good." No, and Keith was so relieved. He was so happy. And then when, he's like, threw his arms up afterwards. "Yes, it's done, and so they were all happy. So afterwards, Bobby actually had to go back when they started doing concerts. He had to go back and learn what he played on the recording, and he had to learn it note for note, because anytime he tried to do anything different, it didn't work. It just he just nailed it so perfectly at that time that those notes could never change. So I'm sure now that Bobby's passed on, and when they do a concert, I'm sure it's the exact same solo, because they had.
All right.
They had tried so much with that.
No, it's beautiful. We got it queued up? Yeah, here's Brown Sugar by the Rolling Stones featuring Bobby Keys on saxophone. Here you go. Oh, yeah, that's Brown Sugar, the Rolling Stones with Bobby Keys on the saxophone. And you're listening to KKID Radio 92.9, Salem, Rolla. And you got Jimmy Tebeau from The Schwag. That's me. I've got my own radio show, and we're just doing what we want in here. We're playing whatever songs we want. I got some friends in here. We're playing some music and telling some stories and doing all that fun stuff. And before we get going any further, I want to say, what's up, Rolla? Holy cow, this past Saturday, that parade, I was down there and I saw it unfold, and I've been seeing that parade happen for like the past 15 years, and Rolla knows how to put on a St. Pat's Day party. I'll tell you what, that was probably the most floats and the most people I've ever seen out for the parade. Now, we were blessed with sunny, fine weather. And my band, The Schwag, we played on the outdoor band shell as we do every year. And that was some of the biggest crowd I've seen out there. And people were raging. It was a beautiful day. And you know how the band shell sets downtown there? And right behind the band shell is those railroad tracks. Well, we're playing our show. In the middle of the show, we're playing Casey Jones by the Grateful Dead. And Here Comes the Train, tooting its horn. And through the whole song, it rolled right behind the stage. It was one of those epic concert experience extravaganza moments where you just couldn't plan that. You couldn't, and even if you
cosmic timing,
it had to have been. Even if we planned it and bribed the railroad or whatever, it wouldn't have happened just like that. So, and you know what else was cool is we got it all on film. We put it on the Schwag's Facebook page and YouTube channel. We have video evidence of this happening, and our camera guy MoHawk, who's in here, he was in the right place at the right time. So it was glorious. Thanks, MoHawk. We got a crowd in here actually, and we got Frisbee up from Little Rock, rocking the piano in the house. And you're playing at Ernie Biggs tonight in Springfield, right?
Yeah, so I'm playing at Ernie Biggs tonight in Springfield, and normally I'm in Little Rock mostly because that's the club where I'm the director, but I'm actually kind of the head director for all the clubs. And Ernie Biggs is really established as one of the premier dueling piano bars, because it's really a bar. We get a lot of locals, and we have drink specials all the time throughout the week, and we change the players, we rotate them around, and even though once we had 5 clubs, we're down to 2, but we're putting on great shows. And we also do private shows, and we do a lot of our private shows. They're called road shows, and we get quite a few right here in Rolla. So I'm sure that there's people out there that are listening right now that have seen me play and doing piano shows right here in Rolla, because we've done quite a few. I know we've done a fundraiser here. We've done some special parties and events and stuff like that. So this is actually in our wheel hub, so to speak.
Oh, that's so good. Well, we're glad you came out to jam and tell stories with us today. And
I've got a question for you. How did you get hooked up with the Jerry Garcia Band? That's the one I want to know. I'm a big Deadhead, and Jerry Garcia Band. First time I saw them, I was just blown away. The organ just took me to another plane, and I saw them. It was in Reno, Nevada, and the moon crescent was out, and it was the first time I didn't know anything about Jerry Garcia Band until I saw him, and I was blown away. How did you end up with those guys?
Well, first of all, for those that don't know, the Jerry Garcia Band was an offshoot of the Grateful Dead. Jerry had his little for fun band on the side, which played a lot of soul, R&B. There were a few originals in there, and some of those songs ultimately melded into the Grateful Dead song list. But Jerry Garcia Band always played all the way up till the end, and towards the end the Jerry Garcia Band was getting like quite a few crowds. They were playing like smaller arenas towards the end, and I got to see them 2 different times, once in Chicago and once in San Francisco. And the time I was in San Francisco, Clarence Clemens from Bruce Springsteen's band, came and sat in. So it's another great sax player. Going on with the theme of
they were very close, Bobby and Clarence. They knew each other.
I bet you the big man, yeah. But so here it was in 1995, Jerry Garcia died, and then the Grateful Dead kept going, and so did the Jerry Garcia Band. They just got different guitar players in there, and ultimately I got a call from the guy who booked the Jerry Garcia Band, which at that point was led by Melvin Seals, the organist who played with Jerry for the last 15 years of his life and was the musical director of the band. He'd hire and fire a number of the band members and deal with that. They had 2 girl backup singers because it was a lot of soul music. So I booked the band to open for the Schwag at one of the early Schwag stocks in Leesburg. And I booked them for, I think, the whole weekend. And that's how I met Melvin Seals. Now, I kept booking them every year, and even when we moved down to Camp Zoe, I would still book them. Each year he would come back with a different bass player. And by the 5th year, I'm like, Melvin, when is it my turn? He's like, oh, you don't want to play this gig. It's not that great of a gig. And I thought it'd be it'd be great to do that gig just for the musical experience, to learn a lot how to play those R&B songs and to tour up and down the East and West Coast. So ultimately, when he fired that bass player, I got the call, and I did 4 years full-time with the Jerry Garcia Band, which was known as JGB, featuring Melvin Seals, and it revolved around a world-class Hammond organist. There's only a few left these days. And I learned so much about music from that band. Like, I learned the value of the whole note. You know, I used to be a real busy bass player, but just to play a whole note, even if it's in the slow 6/8 time, like a 1 2 3 4 5 6, you know, and you're just holding it like Lucky Old Son. That song is really slow 6/8. But I got to play in Canada. We did one gig where we opened for Levon Helm. I got to shake Levon Helm's hand. There was some great gigs. San Francisco, Great American Music Hall, you know.
Levon Helm, you know, he's got a lot of people in Arkansas are just huge Levon fans. And When I Paint My Masterpiece is actually a song that is both Levon, that's one of his favorite songs. In the movie I'm Not In It For My Health, that's the opening song. It's Levon Helm doing When I Paint My Masterpiece, which Jerry Garcia Band obviously made I think that's probably the most popular version of Masterpiece.
They did, and Bob Dylan. Didn't Bob Dylan write it?
I believe Dylan wrote it, yeah.
It's one of those songs a lot of people have done.
Yeah, I know the first time I heard it with Melvin on organ, I was just like, oh, just wonderful. Just takes you to another plane.
Right. So, did you say you got a original song worked up with Franko you want to do?
I do, yeah. You know, we've got a new album coming out. I've got other offshoot things. So this song is called The Toad, and I just did an arrangement just for this radio show with Franko, and we're gonna do our best. We've only played it a couple times, so
this is original composition.
This is one of the songs that I wrote, and this actually a full band version will be on my upcoming album, which is we can talk about after this song. But the mastering has just gotten finished in Los Angeles, and as we speak, it maybe even arrived today. If it's not there today, then it'll be there tomorrow, and we can talk about that project in a minute.
So
this song is called The Toad, and this is Franko Coleman on saxophone.
All right, you got Jimmy Tebeau from The Schwag in the house. I'm being a DJ today. That's right, I got my own radio show. We're having a lot of fun in here, playing songs that I want, playing songs live in the studio, and just joking around, telling stories, rock and roll and all that. But while I've got you all listening, I do got to plug Schwagstock. It's back. We're doing it July 26th and 27th in Waynesville, Missouri. It's not too far from Rolla and Salem, just down Highway 44, 1 mile off the highway. And the Schwag's going to do 2 big nights, as we always do. We got the K Brothers coming down from Columbia, the Driftaways Reggae Band coming down from St. Louis. Got Brother Francis and the Soul Tones. It's a great lineup, and 2 days of camping and all that. And we're working with the Shriners organization and the Shrine Camp there. Part of the proceeds goes to the network of children's hospitals that those guys do. So we're excited about that. And that event is sponsored by Peace of Mind, which has a location right in Rolla here down on Pine Street. They also have locations in Sullivan, Festus, and Park Hills. So it's cool that they're stepping in and doing big things here in the Rolla area. So check them out for cool clothing and heady glass. And actually, we're going to have Scott, the owner of the place. He's coming in maybe next week. You know, I'm going to start doing these shows every Wednesday, 5 to 7. Each week, I'm going to have a different special guest. And I want to thank Frisbee for coming up here, playing piano all the way from Little Rock. Thank you, Frisbee. You know, we got to tell everyone why they call you Frisbee real quick, because I'm calling you Frisbee. Your name's Robert Coleman, but we've mentioned the word Frisbee a few times. What's the story there?
Well, you know, it's kind of funny. The way I got it, you know, we've been talking a lot about Bobby Keys. Well, I've been Bobby my whole life, and I'm on keys. And I started playing in a band with Bobby Keys. So you had Bobby Keys and Bobby on keys. In the same band. And so it got to be quite confusing. And then they finally, you know, they said, well, we got to give you a nickname. And I didn't really want a nickname. You know, I was like, well, I've been Bobby my whole life. Yeah, but so is he, and he's the guy from the Rolling Stones. And so whenever we used to rehearse at Maynard Downs, where the Grateful Dead played. Okay. When they were in Austin, we had a house there called the OD Corral. We either played we either rehearsed at the OD Corral or the Too Lazy to Pee restaurant, and those are 2 different places and whenever we were at the OD Corral, whenever we would take breaks, you know, I was always showing them how to do Frisbee, because, you know, I was heavily in training, and so I'd be showing them, like, and so finally one of the guys just said, we should just call you Frisbee, and it stuck instantly. I mean, it wasn't within a week, everybody I knew was calling me Frizz and Frisbee. You know, if they were mad, it was Frisbee. If it was, hey Frizz, you know, so it was and I kept training, and I became the #1 ranked freestyle Frisbee player in the world.
And I never realized that until I met you, that Frisbee can be a sport. It's much more than just hanging out in the park throwing it back and forth.
Oh, it's
explain that sport real quick. Just a short, you know.
I'm a freestyle Frisbee world champion, and that is, it's choreographed to music. And I actually wrote and produced the music that we competed to when we won the world championships, and that had never ever been done before. But it's basically, it's spinning, and you choreograph it to music, and it spins on our fingers and our feet. It rolls all over our body, and you time it all to music, and it's really beautiful. It's very hard to learn, and it's time consuming, and it takes forever to get good at it. But it's kind of like martial art. But Frisbee is its own, you know, disc sports is its own entity, because you have disc golf. More Frisbees are sold, more discs are sold every year than basketballs, footballs, and baseballs combined.
Wow. And I know I've got a few.
Yeah, but, you know, especially because disc golf, you know, people lose them, so they have to buy more, you know. So and so, you know, you have disc golf, you have ultimate, which is huge, ultimate Frisbee, which is, it's the thing you see on the soccer fields, and then the distance and the field events. So it's its own governing body, and it's its own world.
Is it an Olympic sport?
It is not, but we've done shows for Olympics. It's will eventually, I imagine it will be in the Olympics, but at this point, it's its own. We have our own world championships, and we have different, like there's in freestyle, there's the Freestyle Players Association World Championships. There's the World Flying Disc Federation, is another federation. So we have different federations that run the world events, and so hopefully it'll be in the Olympics someday. It'll be great exposure for it.
That's great stuff. Well, you got time to play another song before you got to go?
I do have time to play another one.
Let's do one we didn't rehearse. What about a blues tune? Is Franko still got a sax?
Franko does have a saxophone.
Yeah, you play in the key of A there, buddy? I'm playing all 12 keys. Are you joking me? Yeah. This is a blues in A kind of thing. 1, 2, key of A. Woke up this morning and I felt the ground for my shoe. That's when I knew I had the walking blues. Woke up this morning, look around, I felt the ground for my shoe. That's when I knew I had the walking blues. Walking blues. Some people tell me that all blues ain't bad. Worst off feeling I almost ever had. Some people tell me the walking blues just ain't so bad. Worst off feeling I almost ever had. I want to hear that saxophone. That's when I knew I had walking blues. Up this morning, look around, I felt the ground for my shoes. That's when I knew I had the walking blues. Walking blues. I had the walking blues. Walking blues. Oh yeah. That's right. Live in the studio, playing live in the studio. That's we got Franko on saxophone and Frisbee on the piano, all the way from Little Rock. And man, that just sounds fantastic. I'm so glad you guys came up to jam.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's an exciting week for us because Stellar Ways. We recorded all the music, and then when you get to the point where you mix it, it's so time consuming, and then actually getting to send it out for the mastering, which and then get the call that it's on the way home.
You brought a recording of this band.
What did you bring? This is a wonderful band. This is Tyndall Jackson is a guy that I've done a lot of music with. We met when I started the Grateful Dead tribute band
in Little Rock. And Tyndall being a graduate of the Berklee School of Music in Boston, correct?
That is correct.
He's maybe one of the few Little Rock guys that got to go to Boston for 4 years.
And he's got a performance degree.
Oh boy!
And he
shreds. He's a shredder of Little Rock. So he's in this band Stellar Ways with you. And
and he's in touch with me as well.
And who's that drummer you had that one time you guys played Birdfest? Didn't he used to play for Beyonce or something?
Yeah, Cliff Aaron, and he's still the drummer.
Of Beyonce.
Well, no, he's still the drummer with us.
Oh, but he toured with Beyonce.
He toured with Beyonce, and he's done a lot of work with stuff with like Alicia Keys and Justin Timberlake. Victor Wooten, who being a bass player, I'm sure you're familiar with Victor Wooten.
He's a monster.
And Victor Wooten said of Cliff Aaron that he thinks he's in the top 5 drummers on the planet.
Now, is this the guy on the recording?
And this is the guy on the recording. The tune that we're going to play it's called Franko McDonald. Now, this is a song that I wrote. I wrote all the parts, and I wrote this song for the band. So, like, I had each member in mind as I wrote it and composed it, and it took some time to learn. The middle section goes into 19/8 is the time signature, and
sweet.
And even the meat of the song, people are like, "What time signature?" And it's like, "Well, that's actually 4." They're like, "How can that be 4?" So it's kind of a fun one to count.
All right, you're listening to KKID Radio 92.9 FM Salem, Rolla, and we're going to listen to some of Stellar Ways recording here.
Yeah,
what's the name of it?
The name of this one is Franko McDonald.
All right. Stellar Ways, original music from Little Rock, and the piano players here, Frisbee. And who all played on that?
All right, that was Cliff Aaron on drums, Tyndall Jackson on guitar, and Bruce Johnston on bass. Dr. Bruce Johnston. He got his doctorate from the University of Miami Music School.
Wow.
It was strange being in a band where 2 of the cell phone numbers began with 305, which is the Miami area code. And then myself, Bob Coleman, Frisbee on piano.
That's some amazing progressive stuff there, and that's coming out on your new release.
Yes, Stellar Ways. I want to call the album Foreplay because there's 4 of us, so we'll see though.
I like it. Well, I think, you got Jimmy Tebeau here with the Schwag. I got my own radio show, and we're doing this thing. We're going freeform too. We've been at it for about an hour and 6 minutes, and I think we've officially reached the comedy portion of the show. I think we should tell some bad jokes. I know you've got some
terrible jokes. Terrible.
I don't necessarily know as a joke. It's just stories from the road. I mean, I was doing a tour. We're in this little town in Macon, Georgia, and I locked the keys in the band, and it took me 3 hours to get the drummer out.
Oh, that's a musician joke.
At least it wasn't the bass player.
Shoot, it happens. Okay, now me being a guy with really long hair and that, I got a hippie joke. So it's hippie. Okay if I tell hippie joke.
That's right.
Because I'm the victim.
That's right.
I'm not picking on anybody, but how many hippies does it take to screw in a light bulb?
I have no idea.
No idea. I mean, that's probably something you have never witnessed in your life, by the way, either, right?
No. Here's the deal. Hippies don't screw in light bulbs. They screw in VW microbuses. Yeah. Or in tents at music festivals, Which makes it okay.
Is that what that noise was?
Oh my! Well, Frisbee,
we thought it was a bear in the tent.
Oh no. Okay, so
you did have bears down there, didn't you?
I know. So Frisbee, you playing in a dueling piano bar? There's a certain level of comedy to it. Is there any fun songs?
Ernie Biggs, we have so many different things we do. There's so much comedy and quick wit and stuff, and a lot of it depends on the night. We do these things called call downs where. I'll give you an example of one. He's like of a guy getting married. We would take him and bring him on stage and sit him on the piano. Usually we just embarrass the crap out of them. Sometimes if they're a little bit more timid, like this song, I say, well, I'm going to give you some advice, and this song's going to help you through your marriage. And
right.
So I tell them to pay very close attention to the words. And this one I did not write, but. Hey honey, have you gained some weight in your rear end? That dress you're wearing reminds me of my old girlfriend. And where'd you get those shoes? I think they're pretty lame. Would you stop talking while I'm trying to watch a game? If you're a man who wants to live a long and happy life, these are things you won't say to your wife. I planned a hunting trip next week on your birthday. I didn't ask you because I knew it'd be okay. Go make some dinner while I watch this fishing show. I taped it over our old wedding video. You're a man who wants to live a long and happy life. These are things you won't say to your wife. This one's hard to do with a straight face, but your cooking is okay, but not like Mother makes. The diamond in the ring I bought you is a fake. Oh, no. Your eyes look puffy, dear. Are you feeling ill? Happy anniversary. I bought you a treadmill. If you're a man who wants to live a long and happy life, these are things you won't say to your wife. If you're a man who does not want to get killed with a knife, these are things you won't say to your wife.
Unbelievable. That's great.
I love that, yeah, because I saw your shtick there in Little Rock. When we play in Little Rock, we play at the Rev Room, which is right across the street from Ernie Biggs, where you're at.
Yeah, the Little Rock location, yes.
Yeah, now there's been a number of times that you're playing at Ernie Biggs and we're on stage at the Rev Room. You got a crowd over there, line out the door, and we've got a crowd over there. And then on your set break, you would run across the street out of the front door of Ernie Biggs and into the back door of the Rev Room and jump up on stage with us between songs, play a couple songs, then go on your break at Ernie Biggs and then go back across the street, play your other set. And then when we got done, we would come over, because Ernie Biggs goes till like 2 or 3 in the morning.
We're the late bar, and we stay up. We have the longest in the River Market. We stay open the latest.
That's cool. And there's been times the Schwag band has come over and jumped on stage at the piano bar.
Yeah. The Ernie Biggs in Little Rock, we kind of, a lot of it has to, I always invite traveling musicians to come in, and it's always a treat when you guys come in, because I know we're going to bust out some really great songs there at the end. And, pretty much at the end of the night, we can do what we want. And, if we get a request in there, we can always cram it in. But, I like turning those jam nights, like when you guys are in town, it's just so much fun and it's great for our crowd, too, because they get to see people they wouldn't normally see in case they missed the show. But we also get a lot of business from people from the Reverend will come over and knowing that you guys are going to play, and so that's a lot of fun. But we get that a lot traveling. Like the other night we had Bob Schneider was playing with his full band, and the bass player and I go way back. He was actually one of the original bass players with Bobby Keys. His name's Bruce Hughes. Well, he ended up touring with Jason Mraz, so he was tour the world with Jason Mraz, and they had the drummer from Eric Johnson was with them. And so as soon as they finished, they came over, and we must have done the last hour and 20 minutes with this rhythm section, and we just had so much fun, and the whole place was going crazy.
And that's neat. I know that one time we came over there, we sized up the crowd, and we're playing Wagon Wheel.
Yeah. Wagon Wheel's such a huge tune.
Well, yeah, that and probably Sweet Home Alabama, which I know is your favorite song.
My least favorite would be Sweet Home Alabama. But
and in telling rock and roll party stories, there was even a number of times that we'd play the Rev Room, then we'd play the late jam with you, and then we would load out and go over to
Midtown Billiards.
Midtown Billiards, which is open till 6 in the morning, I believe.
They usually keep the music to 5. A lot of times, Stellar Ways would play after. You know, we would play Ernie Biggs, and then, Stellar Ways is an all-instrumental band, so, it's kind of hard to sing 8 hours a night, but, so I could play 4 hours and play another 4, and that's okay.
That, or even the band Freeverse.
And Freeverse with Adam, yeah.
So we would go over there, and they would serve hamburgers until like 4 or 5 in the morning. So we get there about 3 or 3:30, eat some burgers, and then jam 2 or 3 songs. And then when we left, the place was still rocking. It wasn't like we closed it down. They were still going strong. We were tired.
Little Rock is one of those places where, that part of the country, the people that don't know about it, it's really amazing. Because, Memphis, people know, we hear Memphis is open. They forget that Little Rock's open all night. When I first moved to Little Rock for Ernie Biggs, Brian Wolverton took me out, who's a bass player, and he's kind of famous. He plays with the orchestra, and I'd met him at one of these jams, and then afterwards we went to a late night bar. Well, the late night bar closed. It was a slow night, so they closed around 4:30. And he goes, "Okay, well, let's go to another one." I was like, "What are you talking about?" And we went to this other bar where I think we left 7:38 in the morning.
Yeah, those are rock and roll epic moments that we're here to tell the story of, and then
and survived.
And to this day, when we come to Little Rock, we'll do all that, and then you always put us up at your house out there on the outskirts of town on that lake, and then
it's actually in Little Rock, believe it or not. That it's at the edge of Little Rock, but it's in the private lake. It's in the city.
Oh, that's a nice place there. Yeah, we wake up. There's a lake in the backyard. There's a jacuzzi too, right?
Yeah, we have a hot tub overlooking the lake, and my wife is from Argentina, and she's a wonderful, wonderful cook, and so she always has different dishes that she makes. And
wow!
So we get there at 4 in the morning, and there's like, what's that one dish she makes? Empanadas or something?
She makes empanadas, and then the one you call lasagna. My wife's name is Sonia because she makes lasagnas.
She makes lasagna. That's really good. And I'm like, I'm going to call this lasagna, and no one had ever said that. That works into the comedy.
Yeah, but that's
portion.
always fun. We've got plenty of room, so we actually have a party coming up on the 4th of July where my band Touch, my Grateful Dead project, we play, and we set up in my carport, and I bring my Hammond organ out. I've got full size Hammond, and but I bring my folk keyboard. We set up in the carport, so in order to watch us, you have to be in the lake. So I got the idea from Jimmy Buffett when I was down living in Miami Beach. He did a concert in Biscayne Bay. Well, he took the stage, instead of facing it towards land, he faced it toward the water. And so the whole bay was filled with canoes and boats and kayaks and yachts.
Wow.
And small craft and large craft. And then I just remember seeing it. I was like, wow, that was just brilliant. It was just a really wonderful idea. So when I moved to this house, my carport is up. It's lifted, so it makes a natural stage.
Right.
So I just trimmed the trees a little bit, and it makes a perfect little window there. And so people they're going around in their jet skis and their canoes and floating around on floats and swimming, and then at the end of the people at my lake, we have a big firework display as well. So it's
cool.
It's a really big party. We're getting ready for one coming up this year as well.
All right.
And we always enjoy your jam room. He's got all these instruments laid out. So there's times we've been jamming at 4:35 in the morning after doing all our gigs, late night jam sessions, empanadas, then jam session again.
Like, here, we missed this lick. Let me show you how it goes.
I know.
It's like, or Jimmy, what was the chord on that? I miss it every time.
And that's what we call being jamaholics. Yeah, it's like we're obsessed. And then we would wake up about 10 in the morning, and then Sonia, your wife, would make us breakfast, and then you got a piano in your dining room. Right next to the fireplace. It's an upright piano. It's
a really, really, really nice Kawai piano. It was appraised for $14,000. So it's it was sweet. Extremely hard to get into that position because we had to come up to this rickety stair. It took 2 days. And they couldn't do it the first day they tried, and they said, no, we're going to have to come back, and they had to bring reinforcements in to get it up the staircase.
Wow.
And but you know, at first people were like, wow, piano by the kitchen table, and then as soon as you sit down and the piano and you're sitting at the table, you go, this is the perfect place ever for the piano.
It resonates so good because it's by the fireplace and the way the house is set up. The acoustics are great there. So we'll have, in the morning, we'll all be taking turns playing the piano, doing different Broadway songs or whatever. And it's a lot of fun eating breakfast there.
Yeah, it's always, it's always a treat.
Very kind host. Thanks, Frisbee.
Appreciate it.
But did you have anything else we were going to play here? Did you bring anything here?
Yeah. Can we do? You know,
He's
since
Gone,
we're talking
or
about,
what?
yeah, you know, He's Gone. I kind of would like to talk about that song a little bit because He's Gone is such a staple of Grateful Dead concerts and what it meant to Dead fans. And I would like you to, you know, I mean, I think everybody knows that initially it was written after Pigpen died.
Right.
But then it became a song that got affiliated with every member as they passed on. And, you know, what's your take on He's Gone? Because it just means so much to so many people because of the lyrics.
Well, with any of the Grateful Dead songs, and what Jerry said once, and I tend to agree with, before I even heard what he said, is that all the lyrics and all the songs are open to interpretation and can mean whatever you want, and can mean different things as time progresses. And I've been playing these songs for 28 years now, and there's still, all these lyrics are still unfolding to me and mean different things as time progresses. But the song He's Gone was what hit really big when Jerry Garcia died.
Absolutely.
In 1995, and he was the one that would sing it. And now Bob Weir is singing it, and you know, we all interpret it as, you know. And speaking of which, I'm going to see Bob Weir tomorrow night at the Pageant in St. Louis. Bob Weir is playing. Yeah, Bob Weir from the Grateful Dead will be in St. Louis tomorrow, and he's playing with Don Was on bass from the group Was Not Was, and then I'm going. Is it Jay Lane on drums? Yeah, I think it's Jay Lane. Actually, I saw a Facebook post Bob Weir put out of him and Jay Lane working out yesterday.
Wow.
Because Bob Weir, he tries working out every day, and Jay Lane's been his.
You know, He's Gone. It's so relevant right now, especially because I mean, everybody has somebody close to them that has died within the last 2 years because of some of this nasty stuff that's been going around.
Absolutely.
It's just horrible what has happened to, you know, the happy-go-lucky days of Woodstock. You know, there's some really bad stuff out there, and so everybody that we know has lost somebody close to them, including me. I've lost quite a few, so that's why I chose this song, so that everybody out there can.
And this is a recording of your Grateful Dead tribute, Touch.
Yeah, this is Touch. This is with Jimmy Lynn on bass.
Oh, I love Jimmy.
And he plays with Free Verse as well. He used to. Now he's got his own band. And Tyndall Jackson, once again, on the electric guitar. I'm playing the keyboards. And David Bishop, who plays with me at Ernie Biggs, is on drums on this one. And actually, I was going to do the organ, but the day I was getting ready to do the overdub on the organ, Dave Rosico happened to be in town, and so a lot of people know him from Branson, and he's had a lot of affiliation through this part of the country. So he's actually playing my organ on this track. So I hope you like it. The introduction and the solo at the end is kind of interesting because it's our own version of it. But I kind of was going for almost a Keith Jarrett type of phrasing. And the piano track, this was live, one take, and there's no overdubs on the piano track at all. So
very cool.
This was done on the first track, and I'm the lead vocalist on this one. So
all right, let's hear it. You got the Jimmy Tebeau show. This is the first time I've ever done a radio show of my own. Anyway, I've co-hosted morning shows up here at KKID before, but this is a lot of fun doing my own thing. And I'm running the show kind of like I run the Schwag shows. It's improvisational, organic, and musical. like the whole thing in the Schwag is we know hundreds of songs and we only get through about 20 of them in a night. And you know, even coming into this gig today, we had a basic outline and kind of you know, some songs we wanted to perform for you all, some that we wanted to play. But you know what else we got here today with us is I brought one of our crew, one of the Schwag crew is here. It's usually our lighting guy. We call him MoHawk, and he brought with him some analog toys that make some. Hey, can you make some noise over there? I want to hear this stuff. Oh my gosh. See, he's making the sound with these analog synthesizers that I know one of those pieces is from Europe. Oh, spooky stuff. Now, when we do the drum space segment of the Schwag shows, we're going to start incorporating some of these sounds in there, and if any of you have seen a Grateful Dead concert, you know that the drum space segment gets quite psychedelic and ethereal, and it's really, the rule is there are no rules. You just make sounds, and everyone's layering sounds. Is that all you got, Mohawk? I know. Come on, set me up here, buddy. Oh yeah, he's got all these wires that plug in and out of this stuff, and it's all modulation upon modulation. Somewhat like Phil Lesh from the Grateful Dead once put out an album called Sea Stones, and it was a lot of experimental stuff like this. And you know, you run that stuff through a huge PA system, like 20,000 watts, with, you know, 16, 18-inch woofers, thumping that low end. It makes you think differently about life. Oh, man. I forgot I was on the radio for a minute there.
That's right.
No, I like that stuff. And you can hear some of this stuff. Mohawk's going to bring out some of this equipment for the Schwag stock July 26th, 27th out there in Waynesville. And we are going to do drum space at least one of the nights, and we're going to give a little bit of this a showcase. And the object is taking the listener to another dimension. I got my acoustic guitar here. Let's see if I can play a song here.
Well, the first days are the hardest days. Don't you worry anymore. 'Cause when life looks like easy street, there is danger at your door. Think this through with me. Let me know your mind. Whoa, whoa, what I want to know is, are you kind? It's a buck dancer's choice, my friend. You better take my advice. You know all the rules by now, and the fire from the ice. Will you come with me? Won't you come with me? Whoa, whoa, what I want to know. Will you come with me? Goddamn, will I declare, have you seen the like? Their walls are built of cannonballs. Their motto is don't tread on me. Come here, Uncle John's band, playing to the tide. Come with me or go alone. He's come to take his children home. It's the same story the crow told me. It's the only one he knows. Like the morning sun you come, like the wind you go. There ain't no time to hate, barely time to wait. Whoa, live in a silver mine, and I call it Beggar's Tomb. I got me a violin, and I beg you call the tune. It's anybody's choice. I can hear your voice. Whoa, whoa, what I want to know. How does this song go? Come here, Uncle John's band, by the riverside. We got some things to talk about here beside the rising tide. Come here, Uncle John's band, playing to the tide. Come on along or go alone. He's come to take his children home.
So, Jimmy, you having fun tonight, man?
I am. I think this is really cool doing my own show. I love playing music, love telling stories. I've got so many of them that, you know, it could take many months before I get through a lot of them. You know, I should write a book, really. Some of the crazy things that, you know, I've been a professional musician since I was 15. I'm 51 years old now, and I've been doing the Schwag 28 years.
Wow.
We played over 3,000 shows.
Wow.
I played all over the country and played abroad. We even in 1996, we did a Department of Defense tour and played Japan, Korea, Singapore, Diego Garcia. And it was like 32 shows in 51 days. I'm not going to get into that story now. That'll be another.
That's a whole nother show.
That's going to be another 45 minutes, and I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to be back next Wednesday, and the idea is to bring in different guests each week.
Right.
Some will be musical guests, and we'll play together. They'll play by themselves. They'll bring in recorded stuff, and you know whatever. You know, it's kind of organic and improvisational, just like the music. And speaking of telling stories, you know, we kind of started off the whole show with this legend of the Rolling Stones throwing a TV outside out of a hotel window, you know, and that was verified today by Frisbee, who played with the guy that actually threw the TV out the window with Keith Richards. So it was verified fact.
That's
they did
how
it.
much closer can you get, you know?
But it made me think of, well, has something like that ever happened to the Schwag? And it's a similar situation happened to us once in Denver. We were playing a 2-night run at a place called, I think it was Coyotes at the time. And it was one of those gigs where you set up on the Friday and you don't tear your gear down until after the show Saturday. So after the show Friday, we ended up partying quite a bit. Like there was some friends there that were, it was after the show. It's like, hey, you don't have to tear down, let's party. So we were doing a lot of drinking, a lot of partying at the club in the green room. And then about 4 a.m, the club's like, we played till 3. And at 4 a.m, the club's like, hey, we're clear. You got to move the party on. You know, you guys come back tomorrow, because they were mopping floors.
Right.
And we're like, oh, okay. So we took the party back to the hotel, which was a couple miles away. And we're up on the 4th floor. And it's one of those hotel rooms that has the sliding glass doors at the other end. And you open the sliding glass doors and you're out on a balcony. So we're out on the 4th floor balcony, and it's about 5:30 in the morning, and we're doing shots of tequila and whiskey, and we probably should have went to bed an hour before that. You know, the sun's starting to come up, and we're feeling like rock stars. And then just then, one of the other band members, I'm not going to name them, leans over the railing and throws up, totally barfs off the balcony 4 stories down, and barely misses a car that was parked underneath, you know, which could have been bad. And then it was at that point, we're like, okay, it's time for bed. And what's funny is I didn't get sleep till about 7 or so, but we must have been exhausted. We had been on a 2-week tour at that point. But I got woke up at 8 in the evening. They're knocking on the door saying, hey, we got to go to the gig. And I was all confused because we got turned around. But that's our big rock and roll story. We didn't throw a TV off the hotel balcony. It was vomit. Not as exciting, but that's my big rock and roll story there. I don't know. For what it's worth. Should I play another song?
Absolutely, man.
Okay, let me turn this down. Oh yeah, I'll get on this one. Oh yeah. Oh, I'm gonna do a fun song.
People say I'm no good and crazy as a loon. I get drunk in the morning, I get stoned in the afternoon. Kinda like my old blue tick, I like to lay around in the shade. I ain't got much money, but I damn sure got it made. I ain't asking nobody for nothing if I can't get it on my own. If you don't like the way I'm living, you just leave this long haired country boy alone. Yeah. Preacher man talking on the TV, he's putting down the rock and roll. Wants me to send a donation, 'cause he's worried about my soul. He said Jesus walked on the water, and I know that is true. Sometimes I think that preacher man needs to do a little walking too. I ain't asking nobody for nothing if I can't get it on my own. If you don't like the way I'm living, you just leave this long-haired country boy alone. Oh yeah, just having a little bit of fun here in the studio. Poor girl wants to marry, a rich girl wants to flirt. A rich man goes to college, and a poor man goes to work. A drunkard wants another drink of wine, and a politician wants a vote. I don't need a whole lot of nothing, but I sure take another toke. I ain't asking nobody for nothing if I can't get it on my own. If you don't like the way I'm living, you just leave this long-haired country
let your boy alone. If you don't like the way I'm living, you just leave this long dreadlocked hippie boy alone. Yeah. You see, I just want to play music. That's
There you
my
go.
thing.
There you
know?
go. That's awesome.
Ever since I could remember, I just wanted to play music. When I went to college, I had to study music. Got out of college, I had to perform music. And in teaching, these days I still teach a little bit. Got a few private students, and
Right.
I got that degree in music education, but I love performing. And, man, we got to plug Schwagstock one more time. Schwagstock is
absolutely.
July 26th, 27th. It's in the listening area of KKID.
Absolutely.
It's in Waynesville. What is that? Exit 152 there. And go about a mile off the road. And the Schwag's playing 2 nights, 2 big sets each night. We're going to be camping, We did it for many years down in Salem, down at Camp Zoe.
Absolutely.
Before that, we were in Leesburg over there.
That's where I met you for the first time.
Right.
It was actually me and Stan Hines came down and met you for the first time. You were doing your Schwagstock, and that would have been probably 99. Were you doing
2001.
2001, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Well, 2000 was the first time we did it at Ozark Outdoors. Before that, we were actually in Lesterville, down there on the Black River.
By Johnson Shut-ins?
Yeah. That's where some of the and the original Schwagstock, the very first one was the one that we called Schwagstock, was just north of Columbia, Missouri. A little campground called It'll Do Campground. We had about 600 people show up, and there was
It'll
like one,
do.
and it didn't do. It didn't. No. We didn't expect
power.
600 people to show.
Oh,
There was
wow.
like very little power, one
Wow.
spigot of water, one porta-john, not much shaded camping, but everyone was like, "Let's do it again." So that's when.
So then you developed going down on the backside of Bagnell Dam.
And we did Bagnell Dam for a while.
Right.
And that was the same year. Because
Right.
when we moved, that first campground, we already, outgrew it, the first event.
Yeah.
So then we moved down to Lesterville and did a couple years there, outgrew that campground. Then started doing 2 events a year with the Bass Brothers up there at Ozark Outdoors in Leesburg, yeah.
Right.
And at the same time, people wanted more than 2 Schwagstocks a year, so we picked up another couple events a year at the base of Bagnell Dam. There was a festival site there.
Right.
It's still there. The
Right.
Iguana Group runs it
You
now.
did the Dam Jam up there last couple summers ago, right?
We
Yeah.
did, yeah. But we did 4 years of Schwagstocks in Leesburg and Bagnell Dam. And then it was actually Bear Bass that said, "Jimmy, you're making so much money, maybe you should buy your own property." So I bought Camp Zoe, and he actually came out and helped out.
Wow,
good
very
friend
cool.
there.
Yep.
And then we were about there 8 years, and then there was the incident.
Yes.
And then went to prison for a little bit, and then got out, and now Schwagstocks are back.
Absolutely.
We brought them back last year, and we did this at the Shrine Camp, same place.
Right,
We're doing
right.
it this year, and it went really well. It was a great crowd. We only announced it 5 weeks out. We're like, well, let's give this a try and see
Right.
if we could raise some money for the Shriner organization, and all the club members out there at the Shrine Camp have been so helpful with supporting the event. They were calling us through the winter, making sure we were going to come back, and we picked a date, and we're going to do it again. It's going bigger and better. We announced it way in advance. Tickets are already on sale. It's $60 for the weekend if you buy them in advance. And let's see, if you get there, one-day tickets are just like $35, I believe. And we're opening the gates on that Thursday if you want to come early. And it's going to be entertainment
bird?
all weekend long. Yeah, we
There
call
you
them
go.
the early birds.
There you go.
Well, anyway, I want to thank everyone for tuning in to my show, the Jimmy Tebeau Show, where it did encompass some storytelling, live music, and even some bad comedy, in there. I think we covered all of that, and then we got to the bottom of a rock and roll urban legend myth, as far as
Absolutely.
involving the Rolling Stones. So that was exciting. Now next week I am going to have more guests. I believe Scott from Peace of Mind is coming in. Now Peace of Mind, located down here in Rolla on Pine Street, they're sponsoring Schwagstock, and they're going to come in and talk about their store and the products they're selling and all that. That'll be next week. And I'll have some other guests. So come back and check it out. I'll be playing some different music and have some different recorded stuff. And, we did videotape today, so we're going to try getting some of this up on the Schwag Facebook page and website, theschwag.com, and check us out on Facebook.
All right. Well, Jimmy, we appreciate it. We'll be back doing it all again next Wednesday from 5 till 7. And you are listening to KKID, Salem, Rolla. Everybody out there, have a great night.